What's going on, guys? I'm back with another 31 Days of Halloween review, and today we're doing a slasher classic, Scream. Wes Craven reinvented and revitalized the slasher horror genre with this modern horror classic, which manages to be funny, clever, and scary as a fright-masked knife maniac stalks the high school students in a middle-class suburbia. Craven is happy to provide both tension and self-parody as the body counts mount, but the victims aren't always who you would expect. Alright, let's call a spade here. Although it's one of the later entries, Scream is one of the godfathers of the slasher genre. It revived it in many respects because the genre started to go through a pretty rough patch for a few years, losing the tread on the tires due to some shitty installments. Alright, so it may not have been the first to do it, but it certainly trademarked the whodunit scheme, really nailing that aspect by keeping you guessing the entire time and not really giving you time to think about who it may be because of how fast the movie moves and how good they set up their potential suspects. One of the other aspects the film absolutely nailed and almost trademarked was the self-aware approach. It was certainly fairly new to the horror genre, being a real good change of pace and doing a great job playing into the tropes they would make fun of, like the dumb woman lead, don't have sex, don't do drugs, and don't investigate random noises. When it comes to the story, it's fairly straightforward, but also has these great layers and twists and turns to it, where it also did a great job balancing the story building with the action, and also meshing the serious tone with the comedy. The plot is very coherent and linear, where everything connects in the end, so in this case, I really appreciated some of the side plots, because it helped juice up our characters, but also play into the story as well. One of my favorite aspects to the film was how they give you small, subtle bits of information as the story unfolded, making you want to believe what you just saw, but also making you overthink it and somewhat overlook what you just saw, making yourself think, no, that's too good to be true. Scream kept you at the edge of your seat at all times, almost making you feel like you're a part of the film because of all the twists and turns it takes, building great natural tension through the runtime. So you start off with that iconic opening set that throws out a twist straight away, setting the table very well for what's to come. Then you have that middle chunk that really builds up that tension in that whodunit scheme. Then finally comes the climax where you get some answers, but yet another twist. It's almost like it relieves some pressures off your shoulders, but have no time to settle because new pressure gets included with a whole new additive to the tension, but at the end of it, everything comes full circle. With a film like this, usually once you've seen it, it usually doesn't really hold tremendous rewatch value, but you can watch this film 4, 5, 6 different times back to back and still find new things within the story, and you can also play investigator and see if you've missed something the first few times around. When it comes to the characters, outside of our lead, they all may not tremendously pop off the page, but at the end of the day, it is a well-rounded cast where they're not just cardboard cutouts ready to be part of the kill count. They all have their unique personalities and cool quirks about them where everybody in the audience can relate to at least one of the characters. I would personally argue that Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott is probably the most iconic protagonist in slasher film history, where for once, it isn't so much the antagonist that carries the film in the franchise, but more so the main protagonist. She is so easy to root for, being a powerful and witty lead, having these wonderful layers to her character, including her backstory, that help you invest in her character so much more. Just to name a few, Matthew Lillard is awesome in his role, where he definitely comes off a bit unhinged, but is extremely funny, having great line delivery in everything he does. His comedic timing and range works so well with what the film is going for, to the point if people said this is the best character, I honestly wouldn't argue with you.
Any circumstances, say, I'll be right back, because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
Jamie Kennedy as Randy Meeks is sort of like all of us watching the film. A horror nerd that knows all the horror cliches and the do and do not do's, but doesn't really have a voice to be heard.
You're absolutely right. I'm the first to admit it. If this were a scary movie, I'd be the prime suspect.
One of the other supporting characters that I feel gets too much shade is David Arquette as Dewey. He may come off as kind of being in the way at times, but usually cops in horror movies are useless, so I thought his character was a good representation of that, making fun of other horror tropes, while also being a pretty fun character as well. The last character that I found to be a bit underrated was Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers. I enjoyed the different style of antagonist that she is, and something new to this kind of film. She plays the role so damn well, where I wanted to hit her with a right cross as well. But at the end of all of this, the main antagonist in Ghostface is the true star of the show. And a lot of slashers like, say, Nightmare on Elm Street or even It, the villains sometimes don't get a lot of screen time, but you can almost feel their presence in every scene. Ghostface has that exact aspect going for him as well. He isn't a traditional slasher villain, which made the film that much more fresh, where he wasn't that real scary or demonic figure, but brought to life by being human and not knowing where or who he is. One massive bit I really enjoyed to his character wasn't so much the low-hanging fruit of his menacing voice or the high body count, but his costume. The costume, although plain, gave that aura that anyone could be the killer, or it may come off simple, but it's mighty effective because you know exactly who Freddy is, but not so much who Ghostface is. And my last positive was the script by Kevin Williamson. The screenplay was well written and very fresh, and like I said earlier, doing a good job balancing the realism and seriousness with the comedy. The friends' conversations and banter really worked and felt pretty genuine for the most part, really messing with one another. Another bit to the script that I enjoyed was the range of it, where there was some good horror aspects, balanced out with some comedy, and also pieces that help you relate to the characters, but more so our main protagonists. As for the jokes, I simply enjoyed them so much. The film mainly doesn't take itself extremely seriously, so the funny moments work so well, especially with the dark comedy. Although there's clearly so much to praise about this film, there's definitely some issues here and there, and of course, small nitpicks as well. My first and main issue comes with the logic. Wes Craven does a great job tying up most of the loose ends, but there's definitely a couple of things that get swept underneath the rug quickly to help facilitate the plot. Another issue I had was with some of the dialogue. Sometimes it can come off a little Scooby-Doo-ish, and not just because Matthew Lillard is in it. Sometimes things can be real on the nose and almost get cringy at times. Another semi-issue I have is with Ghostface himself. I know, I understand they play into the tropes heavy here, so that's why it gets a bit of a pass, plus it can make for a decent laughs at times as well. But sometimes he isn't really as menacing as you'd like him to be, being real clumsy and sometimes a bit of a pushover. But like I said, they play into it so it doesn't knock the film that much. And one of my last smaller issues is with Dewey. As I mentioned, I didn't mind this character that much, but there's definitely some bits where he comes off too over the top, to where he also feels cartoonish along with some bits of his dialogue. And my last issue, more so just a little nitpick, isn't necessarily a direct issue with the first time viewing, but over time, if you watch this film enough, it diminishes a little bit, knowing what's what and who's who, but it's still a great film at the end of the day. Overall, this film isn't perfect, but man, it is so effective. I used to have it as a 10, then it dropped to a 9 because my scale changed after seeing more movies, but after seeing it so many times, I now see some smaller nitpicks to knock it down to an 8, but it's a very solid one at that. And probably with the right argument, I can be persuaded back to bringing it up to a 9. What a film this is. Let me know what you think of Scream in the comments below, and let me know what film you'd like to see me review next. See you guys on the next one.